Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Bola Tinubu orders the immediate suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, over allegations bordering on the payment of 585 million naira into a private account. Supreme Court upholds Governor Hyacinth Alia's election as the validly elected governor of Benue State, reserves judgment in the petition filed by Ebonyi State PDP governorship candidate against the election of Governor Francis Mwifuru. And Federal Capital Territory High Court awards 100 million naira fine against the federal government and the EFCC for the prolonged detention of former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele without trial.
And on business news tonight, global oil prices fall more than 4% as Saudi price cuts raises demand worries.
On sports news tonight, German legend Franz Beckenbauer, widely regarded as one of football's greatest players, dies at 78.
And from Abuja, Church on the Plateau seeks justice for victims of the Christmas Eve killings in Bokos, Mango and Rayom local government areas of Plateau State.
And in international news from London, a senior commander with the Islamist Hezbollah movement has reportedly been killed in an apparent Israeli drone attack in southern Lebanon.
We begin with the wielding of the big stick by President Bola Tinubu on the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu. The President today ordered the suspension of the minister from office with immediate effect after days of sizzling outrage against the minister over a messy disbursement scandal. In a statement by presidential spokesman Ajuri Ngalale, the suspended minister was directed to hand over to the permanent secretary of the ministry and to fully cooperate with the investigating authorities as they conduct their investigation. The executive chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has been directed to conduct a thorough investigation into all aspects of the financial transactions involving the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, as well as one or more agencies under the ministry. A panel that is headed by the Coordinating Minister of the Economy and Minister of Finance has also been tasked by the President to, among other functions, conduct a comprehensive review of the financial framework of the social investment programs so as to conclusively reform the relevant institutions and programs for the benefit of disadvantaged households and win back lost public confidence in the initiative. A few minutes after the statement was released, the suspended minister was seen at the presidential wing of the State House. It is, however, she met with the president. She later left the premises in a private vehicle. Meanwhile, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's the EFCC, has invited the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Betta Edu, for questioning over allegations of financial impropriety in the approval of 585 million naira for disbursement into a personal account. Our sources in the EFCC told Channels Television that the minister is expected to appear before the anti-graft agency, that's tomorrow morning, to answer questions in respect of the allegations. The invitation comes moments after the presidency announced the suspension of Dr. Betta Edu from the federal cabinet. Meanwhile, Dr. Betta Edu's predecessor, a former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk, is still being held by the EFCC. She arrived at the anti-graft agency's office this morning to offer clarifications concerning her stewardship and series of allegations against her while in office. The former minister had earlier failed to honor the invitation of the anti-graft agency on the alleged laundering of 37.1 billion naira during her tenure. She, however, wrote a letter to apologize to the commission over her failure to honor their invitation. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has dismissed with immediate effect the executive vice chairman of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Babatunde Irukera, and the Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, Alexander Oko. According to the statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngalale, the two former chief executives are directed to hand over to the next most senior officer in their respective agencies, pending the appointment of new chief executive officers. The President's decision is said to be in conformity with his plans to restructure and reposition critical agencies of the federal government towards protecting the rights of Nigerian consumers and providing a strong basis for enhanced contributions to the nation's economy by key growth-enabling institutions. To the courts now, the Supreme Court has dismissed the two appeals filed by the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, in the last governorship election in Benue State, Uba Titus, seeking to avoid the victory of Governor Hyacinth Alia of the All Progressives Congress, APC. A five-member panel led by Justice John Okoro said issues raised in the appeals do not qualify as post-election matters. Our judiciary correspondent, Emanuela Ekele, reports that the Apex Court also reserved judgment in the appeals filed by the PDP and its candidate in Ebonyi State, Chukwuma Ifeanyi.
It's the first working week of the court, and this courtroom at the Supreme Court is a beehive of activities as the court is set to hear the appeals from Benue and Ebonyi State, challenging the governorship election of Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia of Benue State and Francis Nwifuru of Ebonyi State. In attendance is the Benue State Governor, his deputy, and some state executive members. Lawyers exchanged pleasantries ahead of the commencement of the day's proceedings. The five-member panel of justices, led by Justice John Okoro, arrived. They dismissed the appeal filed by the PDP governorship candidate in Benue State, Mr. Uba Titus, seeking to void the victory of Governor Hyacinth Alia of the All Progressive Congress just after his counsel, Sebastian Horn, withdrew the appeal. Mr. Horn, who is a senior advocate, withdrew the appeal after getting a hint from the panel that the matter before it was one bordering on nomination and as such a pre-election matter. Justice Okoro held that, as agreed by parties, the order of dismissal in relation to the first appeal shall apply to the second appeal.
I am appreciative of the work done by the justices that sat on the case. This is a long battle that took us to 13 cases at the pre-election matter on this same point. They lost down to Court of Appeal up to Supreme Court and re-instigated the case in the election petition. And today, the Supreme Court have just shown to the world that justice is consistent. Justice is for all.
The governor and his deputy applaud the development.
I'm quite pleased that it's come to this point. It's going to ginger us some more to do the great things for the state. Actually, it's quite a high time for everyone to come on board with us, for the progress, for the development of Benue State.
Back in the courtroom, the court also heard the appeals filed by the PDP and its candidate in Ebonyi State, Chukwuma Ifeanyi, and reserved judgment till a date to be communicated to parties. Justice John Okoro reserved it after parties adopted the brief of arguments. In the arguments, counsel to Odi, Chris Uche, had told the court that Nwifuru was not a member of the APC when he ran for the office of governor, while citing Section 177C of the Constitution.
Can PDP still maintain that he was still a member of APC, having derived a judgment from the courts pronouncing specifically that the governor had actually left PDP and joined APC? So these are the matters we have presented to the court. And like always, it's for my lords, their lordships in their infinite wisdom, to lay down and tell us what the law is.
It's going to be a busy week here at the Supreme Court of Nigeria, as the justices are expected to hear more appeals challenging different governorship elections of March 18, 2023. From the Supreme Court of Nigeria, Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
Still from the courts, Justice Olukayode Adeni of the Federal Capital Territory High Court Abuja has awarded the sum of 100 million naira against the federal government in favor of the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, for the violation of his right to personal liberty. The court also declared his prolonged detention without trial as a flagrant violation to his fundamental rights. It also restrains the federal government and its agents from rearresting or detaining Mr. Emefiele without an order of court. The judgment was given in a fundamental human rights suit filed by the former CBN governor following his prolonged detention in the custody of the Department of State Services. He had asked the court to order the respondents to pay the sum of 1 billion naira damages and to restrain them from further arresting and or detaining him. The former CBN governor was arrested on June the 10th of 2023, shortly after his suspension by President Bola Tinubu. Meanwhile, in a swift reaction, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, says it will appeal the award of 100 million naira fine against it. The anti-graft body, which expressed dissatisfaction with the judgment of the FCT High Court in favor of the former CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. Now, according to the EFCC, the decision failed to take cognizance of the fact that the former CBN boss was held with a valid order of court, adding that it will approach the Court of Appeal to set it aside. Countries rely on their infrastructure to keep their economy afloat, and Nigeria is no exception. Now, in the year 2023, the country made some gains in the area of infrastructure development, but then the country still battles with the challenge of funding gap. Now, the federal government allocated 1.32 trillion naira for infrastructure projects across the country. This represents 5% of the total 27.5 trillion naira budget proposal. Our correspondent, Dare Idowu, looks at the task ahead as the government seeks to bridge the country's infrastructure deficit.
In the second quarter of 2023, Nigeria started a new era under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu and his team, but the story of the country's infrastructure has a huge footprint that transcends the current administration. Nigeria, endowed with a vast network of waterways spanning 10,000 kilometers, experienced a paradigm shift in transportation dynamics. Although water travel may not be the primary choice for Nigerians, but the year 2023 saw a gradual embrace of this mode of transportation. With close to 3,800 kilometers of navigable waterways, 28 out of the 36 states is accessible through the water routes.
Nigeria holds the record of the largest economy in Africa, and one of the ways to measure the economic well-being of a nation is the mobility of goods and persons. In Lagos, for instance, the state government is trying to scale up water transportation, the operation here, and also perfect the intermodal arrangement.
The Ministry of Transportation inaugurated the first cargo movement along the Lagos-Ibadan rail corridor. The Nigerian Railway Corporation reintroduced the weekly haulage of container from Lagos to Kaduna and Kano after 17 years, resuscitating a crucial link that had succumbed to the shackles of poor infrastructure.
And they should be looking up on improved service delivery. We intend to increase the number of turnaround on the passenger train. Lagos-Ibadan will move gradually to 8, but I'm saying before the end of January, we'll move to 6, 3 up, 3 down. Then in the same thing in Abuja-Kaduna, because we don't want to extend till late in the evening.
The year also witnessed the long-awaited launch of a metro rail service in Nigeria's bustling commercial hub, Lagos. The Blue Line not only aims to cut travel time, but also represents Nigeria's first electric-powered trains. On road infrastructure, only 60,000 kilometers of the 200,000-kilometer road network is paved. The completion of the 127.5-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the second Niger Bridge marked a major achievement recorded last year. The Ministry of Works says there's a funding gap of over 6 trillion naira, hampering the completion of projects across the country.
We inherited, about 2,600 something, projects, totaling about 14 trillion. And that was before the inflection, occasioned by the removal of fuel subsidy and the pressure on the naira. And so you can imagine if a bitumen, when we came on board, it was costing 500,000, and today it's costing about 1.3, million per ton. So you can imagine what those projects costs will be today. And so we think strongly that we have to prioritize the projects. So what Mr. President, is likely to direct will be choose through the stakeholders 10 projects in each of the geopolitical zone.
In the face of these challenges, Nigerians found themselves traversing new waters, but the country's infrastructure stories will be better told when the big cities and small communities are connected for sustained economic growth. Dari Idum, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we continue with our series on the task ahead of the government in 2024. And tonight we focus our attention on infrastructure development. We'll be joined on the news at 10 by an economist, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Please stay with us. 10 coming to you live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Bola Tinubu orders the immediate suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, over allegations bordering on the payment of 585 million naira into a private account. Supreme Court upholds Governor Hyacinth Alia's election as the validly elected governor of Benue State, reserves judgment in the petition filed by Ebonyi State PDP governorship candidate against the election of Governor Francis Nwifuru. Federal Capital Territory High Court awards a 100 million naira fine against the federal government and the EFCC for the prolonged detention of former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele without trial. And the senior commander with the Hezbollah movement reportedly killed in an Israeli drone attack in southern Lebanon. Right, for more on the country's infrastructural outlook for this year, 2024, we are now being joined by the Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Yusuf, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much, Ayo. My pleasure.
All right, so we're looking at infrastructure development. Can you briefly give us the current state of Nigeria's infrastructure development? Briefly.
Well, the current state is a state of very high infrastructure deficit. And that has been having very serious adverse effects on productivity in the economy, on the cost of businesses, cost of operations, cost of production. And this is also affecting the general price level, in the economy. And if you look at the different infrastructure classes, basically we have two classes of infrastructure. You have the economic infrastructure, you have the social infrastructure. So if you look at the critical segments of economic infrastructure, particularly power, transportation, and if you break down transportation, you'll be looking at roads, looking at railway system, looking at airports, the ports, and so on. And of course, you also have ICT infrastructure. Of all these categories of infrastructure, I think the most challenging for now, that is impacting very seriously on the economy, are the power and energy situation and the transportation situation. So those are the most critical, and the deficit is huge. Because by the current estimates in the infrastructure master plan, we are supposed to be spending $150 billion annually, for the next 23 years to be able to bridge this gap. And when you relate that amount to the amount of budget we have, you can see a very huge gap. And for some of the multilateral institutions, they have also estimated that for a developing economy, you should be spending at least between 7 to 10% of your GDP to be able to ramp up your infrastructure to support your growth and development aspirations. We are very far from that. Because if you look at 10% of our GDP now, we're talking about 20 trillion naira. I mean, look at the budget that we have seen. Even if you take all the budgets together, both the federal and subnationals, we are not anywhere near that. So we have a very huge deficit, to deal with.
All right, so let's look at the budgetary allocation, Dr. Yusuf, for infrastructure, which stands at 1.32 trillion naira. What key physical infrastructure do you think the President Bola Tinubu administration have to concentrate on, or must concentrate on, to unlock our economic potential as a country?
Well, the most critical for now is power and roads. The power sector, partially, because there's a lot of private sector presence in the power sector. You have the private sector footprint in the generating segment of power, in the distribution, then the transmission is in the hands of government. But government has a lot of role to play to ensure adequate power supply. But in the area of roads is so critical. First, we have very minimal private sector presence, if at all, in road infrastructure. Secondly, almost 100% of the movement of goods and the movement of people in the country is by road. So road is at the center, at the heart of logistics in this economy.
Oh, we're really running out of time, Dr. Yusufa, but I just want to find out, lastly, what funding options do you think the current administration should explore, to bridge the country's infrastructure deficit?
Well, within the budget, I think we need to, prioritize a lot more infrastructure. The good thing about the current budget is that at least we are seeing a higher allocation to capital than the current. That's a very good signal. Then we need to also create the framework to incentivize more private sector involvement. A very credible, regulatory framework, legal framework. We need to create incentives, fiscal incentives, monetary policy incentives, and a proper framework for the sharing of risks so that you can incentivize a lot more private investment in infrastructure. Because the government cannot do it alone, certainly.
Oh, we'll definitely do that, Dr. Mudu Yusufa. Thank you for your thoughts on the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
Let's now head to the nation's capital, where Gloria Omezuoke is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, Ayo. We begin in Plateau State, where the Christian Association of Nigeria in Plateau has organized a rally to express displeasure against the continuous killings in the state and other parts of the country. The rally, tagged Plateau Peace Walk, was led by the CAN chairman of the state, Reverend Polycarp Lubo, in the company of the president of the Evangelical Church Winning All, ECWA, Reverend Stephen Panya. Governor Caleb Mutfang of Plateau State later received the crowd at the government house in Jos, the state capital.
Jesus is Lord.
Clad in black attire as a symbol of mourning, the Christian community in Plateau State embarked on a rally against the spate of attacks in communities across the state. The state chapter of the Christian Association of Nigeria is leading the protest under the auspices of the church denominational leaders. The walk started from the PRT roundabout in the heart of the state capital, Jos, and moved through the Rayfield Road to Government House.
God bless Nigeria.
Governor Caleb Mutfang and members of his cabinet received the procession, where the protesters tabled their demands.
For many years, Christians in Plateau State have come under persistent attacks and killings without any decisive action taken to stop the killings. In the last 22 years of killings, no serious attackers and their sponsors have been apprehended and properly prosecuted. It is clear that this situation should be handled as a national and human rights emergency. So today, we call on the government of Nigeria and leaders of the world to address it as such and remember the women and children of Plateau State.
However, the governor is assuring them that the security situation has improved and arrests have been made. He also assures that their message will be delivered to the president.
We have been through a very harrowing period over this Christmas and New Year. We have been through a lot of heartache because we desire to live in peace. I want to thank you for how you have kept the peace of the land. In the face of provocation, you have not allowed yourself to lose your humanity.
The governor also tells the people that the president has been committed to ensuring that the perpetrators of the attack are made to pay for their actions.
Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State says his administration has recorded great success in managing security issues in the state, and he is certain that at the end of the month, all schools in the state will begin to run full shifts. The governor, while speaking with State House correspondents after meeting with President Bola Tinubu in the State House, also explained why some schools in the state do not open on Mondays. He also expressed his belief that the 2024 budget signed into law by the president will transform the country if adequately implemented.
It is not as if we have not managed insecurity very well, but in those communities that were the epicenter of insecurity during the period under review, the fear is still resonating in the heads of the parents and students of those schools. But we have embarked on an awareness campaign to the extent that I'm almost certain by the end of this month, every school will be running full suit. If you look at the provisions in that act and the number of infrastructure and capital projects proposed by the president, if we're able to perform even 50% budget performance on that document, it will not be the same Nigeria. So by this January this year, which we are already, to 31st December, which is the lifespan of that act, I'm sure the initial pains occasioned by some of these reform policies, like the subsidy removal on petroleum products, the exchange rate escalation, will be cured.
We're still ahead on the news at 10. Global oil prices fall more than 4% as Saudi price cuts raises demand worries. But that's in business news. Do join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. The governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has appointed Alhaji Ahmed Tijani Anaje as the new Ohinoyi of Ibira land, announcing the appointment of the new monarch after a meeting with the State Executive Council in Lokoja, the state capital. Governor Bello says the appointment is in line with the state's traditional and chieftaincy laws, rules and due process. The state government has also deposed a first-class traditional ruler, the Ohimeje Igu of Koton Karfe, Alhaji Abdurazak Isa Koto, and 3 others.
The government hereby come up with the following appointments of the new occupant of the following stools. 1. Alhaji Ahmed Tijani Anaje as the Ohi of Okenwe, as he currently is hereby appointed as the Ohinoi of Ibira land. Number 2, Alhaji Ibrahim Gambo Kabir is hereby appointed as the Megeri of Lokoja. Number 3, Alhaji Dauda Isa is hereby as the Meyaki of Kupa. That is Her Royal Highness Alhaji Abdurazak Isa Koto, the Himege Igu Koto Karfe, who is also the chairman, Lokoja Kogi Local Government Traditional Council, is hereby removed and to be deposed to Rijau Local Government Area of Niger State. Number 2, His Royal Highness Sambola Ojoa, the Olu Magongo of Magongo, is removed and to be deposed to Salka, Magama Local Government Area of Niger State.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Ayol, for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Controversy continues to trail the founder and pastor of the Synagogue Church of All Nations, Pastor T.B. Joshua, even after his death. A new documentary by the BBC Africa Eye has revealed that at least 25 persons have given eyewitness accounts bordering on allegations of sexual assault, physical abuse, faked miracles, and trauma allegedly suffered in the hands of the late pastor. The late TB Joshua was one of Africa's most influential religious leaders and had the world at his feet during his lifetime. He was also popular for his miracles performed on his members and visitors alike, which allegedly cured people of serious ailments ranging from cancer and HIV and AIDS to chronic migraines and even blindness. However, the BBC said its 2-year investigation in collaboration with an international media platform, Open Democracy, revealed shocking details about the late pastor. According to the BBC, more than 25 eyewitnesses and alleged victims from the UK, Nigeria, Ghana, US, South Africa and Germany have provided accounts of what it was like inside Joshua's compound, with the most recent experiences in 2019. The report also says former followers have previously tried to speak out about abuse, but say they had been silenced or discredited by the church. Efforts to get the reaction of the Synagogue Church of All Nations to the BBC documentary has so far proved abortive. The former Director General of the Peter Obi Datti Presidential Campaign Organization, Dr. Doyin Okukwe, has resigned from the Labour Party. Dr. Okukwe, in his letter to the Labour Party, anchored his resignation on the ideological differences that emerged after the 2023 elections, adding that his lifelong alignment with right-wing and liberal democratic principles clashed with Labour Party's left-of-centre ideology, a situation that makes his continued membership of the party untenable. According to Dr. Okukwe, quote, "I have been a rightist and a liberal democrat all my entire life. It is therefore..."
Having traversed several federal ministries, departments and agencies, working with development partners, local and international bodies, as well as in the diplomatic circles, where I ensure the effective coordination and delivery, I am equipped to maximize the resources of Edo State for optimal growth. I have accepted the call on me to come and serve you in the capacity of a governor.
He underlined some of the opportunities embedded in his Fresh Hope agenda.
To achieve the following program: accessible healthcare, agricultural revolution, youth empowerment and entrepreneurship, women empowerment, transportation, small and medium-scale enterprise growth and development, infrastructure, and rural development.
Ernest Umahi, he has seen it all after 35 years in the civil service, an experience he believes will be brought to bear if given the opportunity to serve as governor of Edo State.
Business News is up next with Will Ibom.
Thank you, Ayotunde, and welcome to Business News. Now, global oil prices have declined more than 4% on Monday after Saudi Arabia slashed its prices, raising renewed worries that the market is oversupplied at the same time as demand is slowing. The West Texas Intermediate Futures contract for February lost 4.48% to trade at $70.50 a barrel. The Brent futures contract for March shed 3.63% to $75.90 a barrel. The sell-offs come after Saudi Aramco on Sunday sharply lowered the price of Arab light crude to Asian customers by $2 per barrel. Meanwhile, Nigeria has boosted OPEC's 28.05 million barrels per day average crude oil production in December last year, with an extra 50,000 barrels per day added to the cartel's outputs. Now, Nigeria's Debt Management Office, DMO, has opened its subscription offer for the January 2024 federal government savings bond, which is the first for the year. In a statement released today, the DMO says the debt instruments include a 2-year FGN savings bond due January 17, 2026, with an interest rate of 11.03%, and the 3-year savings bond offer due on January 17, 2027, with an interest rate of 12.03% per annum. The monthly bonds offer opens today and ends on Friday, January the 12th, with January the 24th as a settlement date. Now, Nigeria's central bank says it has disbursed about $61.64 million to foreign airlines operating in the country as part of efforts to decrease its outstanding liability to the airlines. CBN's acting corporate communications director, Hakam Hasidi, who made this known in a statement, disclosed that the disbursement was done through various deposit money banks. According to the Financial Markets Regulator spokesperson, the move further confirms the CBN's resolve to eliminate the backlog of pending matured Forex in banks, as well as dousing pressure on the exchange rate. She added that the Apex Bank also redeemed outstanding forwards liabilities amounting to about $2 billion in the past 3 months, taking the total to about $2.06 billion. Now to some company news. Listed Tier 1 bank, UBA, has surpassed the 1 trillion naira market capitalization, making it the third most capitalized financial institution in the country. And this comes as the company's share price hit 29 naira 90 kobo in today's trading session, joining the group of companies with stocks worth over 1 trillion naira. UBA opened last year, 2023, with a market cap of about 283 billion naira, and a remarkable lift underscores the bank's robust growth trajectory and unwavering market confidence. Notably, between the start of January 2023 and today, the price of UBA shares has appreciated by over 250% from 7 naira 60 kobo per share. With that, we head to the equities market, which opened the new trading week with another fantastic milestone hit today. Ini John Mekwa is here with the details.
It's a great Monday, Will. 364 billion naira is what the NGX gained only today, one trading session. And when you add that up, 5 trading sessions in the year 2024, we have made 4.3 trillion naira. Wow, this market is bubbling, I can tell you. Well, it's 0.83% for today. We were on the edge at 7 to 9. Remember, on Friday, we've gone above that. Now, 328.58 is the all-share index. We've gone past South Africa. I'm so excited about this. The market cap was struggling to do 40 trillion naira. Now it's at 43.957. Who knows, we will get to 44 trillion naira tomorrow. And when we look closely, we see that this excitement is all around the banking counter. That's why banking is up 2.23%, consumer up 0.13%, and oil and gas 0.59%. So it's excitement and green all the way, but it's greenest when you look at the Fugas. The Fugas did the magic today. So FBN holding is unchanged, but the U in the Fugas, UBA, had 3.28%, GTCO, it's all 3%, 3.53%, Accessco, 3.20%, and then it follows. So, Will, I can feel your excitement, but I tell you, the investors are more excited than you are. And this growing bubble, we do not know if this is just the beginning or where the peak is, but I can tell you that the bull is very excited.
And that's a wrap on business news. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Thank you, Will. Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has confirmed one of its commanders, Wissam Tawil, has been killed in a strike in southern Lebanon. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A senior commander with the Islamist Hezbollah movement has reportedly been killed in an apparent Israeli drone attack in southern Lebanon. Lebanese state media says that Commander Wissam Tawil was killed when his car was targeted in the Kibbutz Selm area in the Bint Jubail district. Meanwhile, the International Rescue Committee says it has pulled its medics from the only functioning hospital in central Gaza. The IRC says increasing military action means it has to protect its staff and warns many more Palestinians will die without medical care. The move follows the cancellation of a World Health Organization-backed mission to bring medical supplies into northern Gaza. Investigators say Alaska Airlines placed restrictions on the Boeing plane involved in a dramatic mid-air blowout after pressurization warnings in the days before Friday's incident. After losing part of its fuselage, the plane, a Boeing 737 MAX 9, made a safe emergency landing after returning to its departure city, Portland. The NTSB also says the missing section of the plane has now been found in the back garden of a Portland teacher. There were 177 passengers and crew on board the flight to Ontario, California, but no one was hurt in Friday's drama. Apple has begun making payments in a long-running class action lawsuit over claims it deliberately slowed down certain iPhones in the US. Complainants will receive a cut of a $500 million settlement, which works out at around $92 per claim. A similar case is underway in the UK, seeking £1.6 billion in compensation. The US case dates back to December 2017, when Apple confirmed a long-held suspicion among phone owners by admitting it had deliberately slowed down some iPhones as they got older. Hundreds of police in Ecuador are searching for a convicted gang leader who has vanished from his prison cell. Adolfo Macias Villamar, better known as Fito, is the leader of Los Choronos, a powerful gang which is thought to have been behind some of the deadly prison riots in recent months. He was being held in the maximum security wing of a jail in Guayaquil. A Gambian former interior minister has gone on trial in Switzerland charged with crimes against humanity. Usman Sonko was arrested after non-governmental organisations presented evidence of his alleged involvement in killings, rape and torture. Rwanda and Jordan have signed multiple bilateral agreements as the two countries seek to broaden ties. The deals were signed by Rwanda's President Paul Kagame and Jordan's King Abdullah II, who arrived in Kigali on Sunday for a 3-day working visit. King Abdullah also thanked President Kagame for sending humanitarian aid to Gaza. The pacts cover collaboration in health and medical science, as well as economic, trade and agricultural cooperation. Farmers in Germany are blockading roads in protest against subsidy cuts, with more than 500 tractors and trucks parked up at Berlin's Brandenburg Gate. There are also reported blockages in Baden-Württemberg, North Rhine-Westphalia, Saxony and Bavaria. The subsidy cuts were designated to fix a budget crisis after a court ruled the government's 2024 budget was illegal. But the cuts have backfired, and there are fears the ensuing row could feed the far-right's popularity. And Oppenheimer was the big winner at the Golden Globe Awards, taking home 5 awards, including the top prize.
The Golden Globe goes to Cillian Murphy.
This is Cillian Murphy's second nomination and first win. Cillian wins his Golden Globe tonight for his role of J. Robert Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer.
But I have no choice.
Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. were both recognised for their acting performances, while Christopher Nolan won Best Director. Succession scored the most wins in the TV categories following its acclaimed 4th and final season. Meanwhile, Barbie won the inaugural Box Office Achievement Award after grossing $1.4 billion worldwide. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Sports is now football legend Franz Beckenbauer, who left a unique imprint on German football as a player, captain and coach, has died at the age of 78 earlier today. Beckenbauer, one of the only 3 men to win the World Cup as a player and coach, passed away on Sunday, and that's according to the German Football Association. It's another injury blow for the Super Eagles of Nigeria as Bayer Leverkusen forward Victor Boniface has confirmed he will be missing the tournament, which starts in just 4 days. Boniface sustained a muscle injury in training, but the extent is not yet known. Meanwhile, today the Super Eagles suffered a 2-0 defeat to Sili National of Guinea in a warm-up game played in Abu Dhabi. Other stories now. Head coach of the national under-20 women's team, Christopher Danjuma, has picked up captain Oluchi Ohaigbulem, goalkeeper Faith Milano, defender Shukurat Oladipo among a list of 19 Falconets players who will file out against Burundi in the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup qualifying fixture. And that's Sports Tonight. Is back to Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu today ordered the immediate suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, over allegations bordering on the payment of 585 million naira into a private account. And the Federal Capital Territory High Court has awarded a 100 million naira fine against the federal government and EFCC for the prolonged detention of former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele without trial. Meanwhile, the EFCC said it will appeal the award of the 100 million fine against it. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Do have a good night and stay safe.